James Jimmy Iovine is a renowned Italian-American leader within the music industry. He has worked as a recording engineer, music, and movie producer. Currently, he is the chairman of Interscope Records, a label group that is a part of Universal Music Group conglomerate. I chose Jimmy Iovine because he has worked in the music industry for more than 30 years and is the current chairman of one of the most well-known record labels in today's music industry. Jimmy Iovine's career achievements include producing Damn the Torpedoes, the first of three successful albums with Tom Petty and the Heartbreaks, producing Stevie Nicks' solo debut album Belladonna that went #1 on Billboards, and helped in launching the careers of stars like Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, and Eminem. In 1990, Jimmy Iovine with co-founder Ted Fields created Interscope Records and became the sole chairman in 2001. Jimmy Iovine also produced the popular films 8 Mile and 50 Cent's Get Rich or Die Trying. Jimmy is also the co-founder of the popular Beats by Dre audio company. Jimmy Iovine first began his career in the music industry in 1973 as a recording engineer hired by the Record Plant Recording Studio. He has worked for a variety of artists such as John Lennon and Bruce Springsteen. By the late 70s, Iovine began working as a producer and producing hits like Patti Smith's Easter album and Damn the Torpedoes by Tom Petty and the Heartbreaks. In 1984, he also worked on the film 16 Candles as a musical director and supervisor. With the opportunity to work in film, it enabled Jimmy to springboard into one of the most popular and respected producers in the 80s. Jimmy Iovine mastered Green's 35th Law, which is master the art of timing. When gangster rap was beginning to gain more notoriety within the music industry, but major labels were still afraid of the genre, Iovine and his newly co-founded company, Interscope, took advantage of the trend by investing money into Death Row Records and landing a distribution deal with the rising rapper and soon-to-be super producer Dr. Dre. The same year that Iovine signed Dr. Dre released his solo album, The Chronic, one of the critically acclaimed best rap albums of all time, and a Grammy winner for the single Let Me Ride. Early in Jimmy Iovine's career, he achieved the second level of Maxwell's 5 levels of leadership, which is permission. Jimmy Iovine built solid relationships with others within the music industry that allowed him to sign some of the top talented artists at the time. When the alternative rock band Nine Inch Nails wanted out of their contract with TVT Records, Jimmy worked for an entire year with Steve Goblet, head of TVT Records, to form a joint contract with Interscope for the band. In an interview with New York Times Magazine, Danny Goldberg, the chairman of Warner Brothers Records, described Jimmy as a person who has the gift to get things from his friends that further his career goals without making you feel that you've been used. It's a real art because Jimmy can do these things without making anyone unhappy. Jimmy Iovine is a man of integrity. In 1995, Interscope was receiving criticism for its support of gangster rap artists at Death Row Records. When executives at Time Warner were trying to exert pressure on Iovine to change the music, Iovine refused to do it. Iovine explained in an interview with the New York Times that changing would go against the original mission at Interscope. Our charter was to make deals with people that we really respect and give them complete and absolute control over their lives. We feel if we made that, we would bat really high. The pressure from the parent company Time Warner made Atlantic Records sell its share of the label, but Interscope formed a distribution deal with MCA label later that year, and most importantly, never compromised the music. As a new co-founder of Interscope, this is when Jimmy Iovine entered the production level of Maxwell's 5 levels of leadership. Interscope was beginning a successful label that was producing hits from artists like No Doubt, Limp Bizkit, Marky Mark, and the Funky Bunch, Eminem, 50 Cent, and the Pussycat Dolls. Interscope has gained impressive profits with Death Row Records and the various artists signed to the label. In 1996, the company had songs at the top 4 spots on the Billboard charts, an unmatched record established in 1976, 20 years earlier, by Columbia Records. In 1999 alone, the company had 150 employees and sales of $260 million. Jimmy Iovine has notably been an influential instrument in the careers of many aspiring artists, mentoring them, and guiding their careers to new heights. But the most recognized mentee that Jimmy Iovine has molded is his protege, Dr. Dre. Following in Jimmy Iovine's footsteps, Dr. Dre has created his own successful record label called Aftermath and and also ventured into the music industry with films like The Wash and Training Day. Today, the two are co-founders of the popular audio stereo company Beats by Dre. All throughout his career in the music industry, Jimmy Iovine has taken credit for all of the accomplishments associated with his name. Like Greenlaw, get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. Jimmy has done that numerous times. All of the accomplishments associated with Jimmy hasn't been all of his work entirely. He had producers, artists, and others working for him to make Interscope the success that it is. One of the most important credentials assigned to his name is giving the tape of the underground rapper Eminem to Dr. Dre. In retrospect, giving Eminem the big break that would help establish Eminem as one of the most talented and commercially successful rappers in today's music industry. As described in Maxwell's five levels of leadership, personhood is reached when people follow because of who you are and what you represent. Jimmy Iovine is currently at the fifth level of leadership. He is a well respected leader in the music industry with a solid amount of relationships with colleagues to drive change within the industry. He was one of the few leaders that the late Steve Jobs sought out to persuade to have music industry executives transition to the digital era and iTunes. Jimmy Iovine's influence is also noticed and recognized when he began and continues to mentor on the hit show American Idol.